UK after 15 years in New York City. And Victor, as he mentioned, he's in Stockholm. We've known each other for a long time, basically at the outset of our careers, and stayed in touch. And I won't go too much into our backgrounds. Happy to cover that as well. But Victor's been part of building 3 unicorns. I've sold a company as part of a $200 million acquisition. And then we got together basically because we've both been really fascinated by the talent recruitment search space for a long time. And it felt like the right moment, given sort of how AI is transforming industries, to think about what the future could look like. And to be honest with you, we didn't have an answer at the outset. And the thing we decided instead was to build a recruitment agency, an AI-enabled recruitment agency. We built our own search functionality, our own assessment tools, basically everything in-house. And we got very lucky. We served frontier AI and Neo labs across San Francisco, New York, London, SF, Paris, and Stockholm, and did really well. Made about $500,000 in 3 months doing that. And the thing that was really driving our success was this agent, this coworker agent that we had built for ourselves in Slack, and it was called Tavi. And Tavi ran all our searches, worked on all our assessments, and it allowed us, because we are a team of 4 between London and Stockholm, allowed us to basically extend our services beyond what we could have reasonably done if we didn't have Tavi. And then there became a choice. It was like, do we run with this agency model? Things are going well, or do we do something different? And we decided on the latter. We decided to, instead of having Tavi as a customer of one, being ourselves, to package and productize Tavi into a AI coworker for hiring, for recruitment, that anybody could access. And that's what Tavi is. Tavi lives in your Slack. So where you already work, it's 2026. It didn't make sense, especially given how competitive the space is. I don't have to tell you guys, to build another platform or tool. What made sense to us was to build a coworker that can empower recruiters to do their job as well as possible. And so that's what Tavi is. Tavi is an AI coworker for hiring. It lives where you already work. And it does everything. It does everything from, as the foundation being search, all the way to integrating with your ATSs, your CRMs, your note taker, your Notion, and basically taking that burden off of you so that you can do what we all love doing, which is meeting with candidates, engaging with candidates, converting candidates to become a part of the organizations that we're a part of ourselves. And so, yeah, we have about 80 customers at this point. We started basically rolling out Tavi in May. And we were fortunate enough to be recommended to Sabrina by Rob Ray, who's the head of talent at EtherBio, who loved what we were doing, was using Tavi, and then this is where we are. One other thing just to say is that the sourcing part, the searching part, and I'm sure Victor can tell you more. Tavi does an incredible job at it. It scored 97 out of 100 on what's called the People Search benchmark. And this benchmark is a open source benchmark that basically ranks various different sourcing platforms on the ability to find talent. And we scored higher than the Prisms, the Juiceboxes, the Exas, the Claudes of the world. And then, of course, that's what allows us to then do all these other wonderful things, which is around integrations and kicking off sequences for emails and so on and so forth. I'm going to stop for a second. If Victor has anything to add, otherwise I'd love to share the demo with you guys live and give you a sense for it instead of speaking about it.
Go for it, man.
All right. Okay, so let me see if I can share my screen. Great. So in this example, you're just going to see sort of a workflow that we're about to launch, and it's an alpha with some customers at this point. But what you'll see is basically a kickoff of search and what's possible right from where you work in Slack already. So Sava kicks it off and says, "Hey, Tavi, can you find me a product engineer that's in London, should have 2 to 3 years of experience, has worked in early stage startups, preferably." So again, natural language. You could give it a job description, a PDF, a website, but in this context, it's just a short brief, if you will.
Mo, can I chime in quickly?
Yeah.
So what's happening on the back end now is that Tavi will we've built Tavi to kind of replicate how an agency works with talent mapping. And when you get a new assignment, you're trying to understand where does this talent pool live, where does within which clusters of companies, etc. So we've built Tavi to really try to replicate all that work that goes into that research, so that you really have at your fingertips a full research team that produces all that research going into the search. And Tavi will, in the background, deploy a number of different search strategies in parallel, where it will figure out different keywords, different search strings, etc., and run those searches and then iterate with itself. It may decide actually in that iterative process that it'll go back to one search strategy and change some keywords because it didn't really yield the results it was happy with before it comes back to Slack with a shortlist. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that sort of background research that's a core part of why Tavi really scores so well on benchmarks.
Yeah. And so you see here, find me, this is in Slack. I assume most of us are in Slack. If not, Teams is somewhat similar. Find me a product engineer. Tavi asks a clarifying question. Do you mean product engineer as in full stack product-minded software engineer? Sav says full stack, yes. Product-minded. And then Tavi runs this deep search, as Victor's talking about, and comes back with the results. It sort of gives you a transparent sense for how it did it. And then here's the results. Right in your Slack, if they're engineers, you obviously can also get their GitHub, their emails, their LinkedIn. It's all there. This is just a short form. There's a thing called Canvas in Slack where Tavi basically allows you to look more deeply into each candidate. So it's all being tracked there. And then this is where you can kick off the sequence, like draft the outreach for the candidates that you like. And there's the 4 that were chosen there. Here's the outreach. You press next for each of the ones just to make sure that they're good to go. And then you kick off that sequence, and then that goes off, and your emails are gone out into the ether, if you will. Now, you could also, at the same moment, you could create the pipeline. And this is what's really cool about Sabrina. We were talking about this for a moment earlier, but imagine that you want Tavi in this moment to deliver you great candidates over and over again, right? So the search is set up. You know what you're looking for. The pipeline name, London, product-minded, full-stack engineer, 2 to 3 years. You tell Tavi every day on a daily basis at 9 in the morning, give me candidates that sort of meet this brief over and over again. So this is sort of putting a pipeline on autopilot. And again, from where you already work. So you don't have to log into anything else, anything new whatsoever. And that's exactly what Tavi does. Now, there's another button here, which is add to ATS. So, we've got customers that use, for example, Ashby. You can put the candidates that you like into the ATS, and you kick off flows there. The idea is that we're not going to tell you what tools necessarily to work. Tavi can integrate with pretty much anything out there. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And yeah, I mean that's where we're at. And we the best thing we did was to start as a recruitment agency to build deep empathy for the tremendous work that goes into finding great talent, as opposed to running towards a solution that wouldn't have made sense. And that's where this came from. We were our own design partners at the outset, and then we're fortunate that folks are trusting us increasingly with their recruitment processes. So thank you for listening, and sort of I'll leave it at that.
First off, I think that's awesome. I love how it integrates, because you answered my question. I was looking and I'm like, oh yeah, you can add it to your ATS, because I think that's key. I love how it's in Slack, because I'm doing a little bit of a different role right now as a chief of staff at a events agency, and everything's in Slack. If anything comes in email, we transfer it to Slack, keep everything there. So it kind of just runs there. Can you also like, I'm sure you can just like really change the parameters. What if I'm looking for a contract person, and not a full timer, and does it comb LinkedIn and those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a customer late last night in New York ask, hey, can you find me engineers who have stealth mode in their profiles, because they're a great pool to search and find folks from. So those types of parameters, absolutely, especially if they've sort of signified that in their processes. And Shannon, like, recruitment is such a team sport. That's the thing with Slack. You could, when you install Tavi, it takes 60 seconds. You can invite anybody to that channel that Tavi's in. And you guys can go back and forth on the candidates that it finds, or let's say the search brief or updates, all of that. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And what if you're like a small start? Like, what if you don't have an ATS, but you want to like transfer that into a tracker or an Excel? I hate to say that, but can you do that too until you have an ATS?
Yeah, absolutely. We both started our careers in consulting, and so spreadsheets are our home court in a sense, Shannon. And so you can ask Tavi to put together a spreadsheet for you, and it'll do that. I do that all the time for GTM sales purposes as well as recruitment.
And let's say, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop and then I'll listen. We're going to have questions. But also, if you're in it and it's constantly working for you, I love it. It's an agent for you. Let's say you find someone that, like they pull it up and you look or you talk to that person and they're going to be busy on a project for 6 months. Can you also let Tavi know to remind you in 6 months to reach out to that person again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Good. Or you could take note of that, whether you work in if that person, for example, you add them to your ATS, be like, hey, look, put the note, Tavi, put the note, this person's out of the game for 6 months, but remind me to message them. And then, so I'll stop there. But all of those things, that's the thing. It's a coworker for you. It's not trying to replace you. It's really trying to empower you.
Yeah, one thing that Mo and I, since we are both non-technical, and our third co-founder has built all this, when we started working with Tavi ourselves, there were a lot of moments when we were like, Tom, what's happening now? Why doesn't it do this? Or can Tavi do this? And Tom's question were pretty much always, why don't you just ask Tavi?
It's
so
like
it is, I think that it's some level of sort of unlearning that we all have to go through with these agents, because they're really like humans in a sense, right? They understand things, they can do things, they can do much more than we probably think of them. And since obviously Tavi is based on an LLM, it's just infinitely intelligent almost, and very resourceful. And the more you connect it to your stack, obviously the more functional it becomes for your process, whatever it is. If it's connected to a spreadsheet or Notion or an ATS, a note taker for your interviews, whatever it is, it can analyze interviews, it can give you feedback on those interviews, it can update the ATS with that feedback and so forth, all from Slack. And I think what we're hearing a lot is that this new sort of interface modality, or just keeping everything in Slack, is what people really like, as it speeds up your work. It doesn't disrupt. You can bring in other folks easily into the conversation about a profile or a candidate, and that's why we've chosen to focus on the Slack interface. We're obviously going to roll it out to Teams as well in a moment, but for now it's Slack.
Yeah, and if you were in Slack and you were working with the hiring managers, like say you had engineering managers, you had product managers, you had design, would you all like have a different Slack channel for all of them? Or because it gets noisy. Like, do you have thought about that?
Yeah, so like when you install Slack, excuse me, when you install Tavi in your Slack, it opens up a channel, Tavi Recruiting. And then you can create new channels and add Tavi in there for a particular purpose, let's say. In an external recruiter context, we've seen where, per channel, it's like a different client that they're servicing. And so like Tavi on channel ExxonMobil will just be focused on ExxonMobil. Tavi for Boeing, will just be focused on Boeing, if you will. I know you worked at Cohere. It could be like Tavi for, or you could do it on a role by role basis. The other thing, Shannon, is those channels are intended for collaborative purposes. So there's multiple people in there. You guys do the whole team sport thing, but then you have direct message capabilities with Tavi as well. So let's say you just want to like shoot the shit. Sorry, but like shoot the shit with Tavi one-on-one. Nobody else needs to see all this stuff. You can take care of that in a direct message format.
And then it gets to know you, right? Because I'm reading job descriptions in AI, and it's like, hey, for trademark, and now it's like knowing our format, you know. So again, I bet it's you're prompting the LLM, and it's getting to know you more and more. It's going to be more and more efficient.
Entirely. Something to add there is also that, you know, we've seen, like, there's a startup in Ireland who uses Tavi to source for candidates as like a collective. They do that, but then like the head of sales, Toby, was using Tavi to basically plan out his go to market in the United States. And that's just like a one-on-one thing. That's what makes Tavi great for recruitment is also in parallel what could make it great for GTM and sales. So it's of course our wedge or our focus is recruitment, but you can use a lot of different sort of use cases beyond recruitment in a direct message.
I have another question, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna let other people ask at the end.
I think something to note, so I'm actually using this as a user right now. I'm piloting it, and it's been really fun. Obviously, you guys know how Syelo works. I'm kind of using it for dual purpose. We're using a little bit for like business development, a little bit for sourcing. But I think it's interesting to note, like, although this is ultimately created to be more of like a recruiting assistant, essentially, like there's so many use cases for this. So, you're right. Like I was noticing earlier, I'm like, can Tavi do this? And I'm like, oh wait, let me just ask Tavi, and it'll figure it out for me. But I think it'd be interesting to hear, like specifically Shannon too, like you're a chief of staff, like you're going to have lots of different use cases. But Mo and Victor, in your experience, like what have people been using this primarily for? Like what have you seen of kind of been the main use cases here?
Yeah, I mean, it really, we first of all, search and sourcing has been the core use, whether it's VCs, recruiters, inside companies, or externally. It's been sourcing, and then as we've proven ourselves from a sourcing perspective, they've asked, well, as we're kind of the nature of this conversation, it's like, well, what else can Tavi do? Can you integrate with this? Can you add my notes to the search? Can you send initiate the sequence for emails? And those are all things that Tavi can increasingly do. On the non-recruitment side, I mean, I think GTM and sales, Sabrina, is probably the biggest one. But then folks are also using it for market intelligence, and then event planning. Like there's a woman a female recruiter in Berlin who used it to plan her trip to London. She was in London Tech Week. She wanted to go to a bunch of events. Like, Tavi, tell me, where should I be showing up given what you know about me? And so those are the types of use cases, I suppose.
Yeah, Cohere too. We'd have networking events where we'd bring the founders like Aiden Gomez like into a room in the UK and with their venture group, and we would make a lookbook of the candidates so he could quickly see like who was who. You know, I feel like use it for those kind of things, and I think talent mapping too. Like we stood that up at Coinbase for crypto, right? And it took forever to mudge all that data into this huge Excel sheet. It was like, we said the minute you put anything on there, it was outdated, right? Because there was no mechanism back then and now there's AI, right? But like to make sure it was updating all ongoingly, ongoingly, is that a word? That's my English word. I made that up. Like it was one of those things that it was just an eyesore to look at how we were tracking everything, but we actually came up with some great data. And now with AI, you can have that in moments, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's a startup in New York that used this last week for basically mapping out competitors that were doing similar things. Just to give me all the software engineers. Tavi, given what you know about us, this was the brief. Like, given what you know about us, go and find comparable companies and give me all their engineers. And then from there, he would kick off the sequence. It's just like obvious, But also, Shannon, you reminded me of that scene in Devil Wears Prada, where they're at the party and it's like there's the book of all the visuals of the faces. Mm-hmm. That's an important feature for sure.
Yeah, the AI can be telling that founder, like, there's the guy, like that's the person from Google you want to talk to. Google DeepMind, whatever.
At some point, it will be in your ear, I'm sure.
But I have a question. So, what is I sorry, at 500, I don't mean to overtake, but what is the cost? Because like I'm talking to LinkedIn right now for a license for a trademark, which is like we don't do a lot of full-time hiring, and their licenses are outrageously expensive for some. doing some hardcore scaling, you know? So
Yeah.
how does the price?
It's first of all, it's not per seat. It's basically on how many tokens you use.
Okay.
Typically, we say $300 to $500 a month will get the job done for you, especially Shannon, if you're not hiring like a crazy amount. We see it go up to, we have a couple customers that are paying around $1,500 a month, but they're executive search, they're search firms. They're constantly searching for candidates. Like yesterday, we saw the usage report, and she kicked off 70 searches. So, like, you know, that's and obviously not on her own, her and her team, but for the purposes of, like, generally speaking, we just target 300 to 500, and we're early. Like, we know we're competing with the juice boxes of the world and the plethora of other platforms, so we have to be competitive.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
It's a lot cheaper than LinkedIn Recruiter.
Like, look, no, it has to be. I can't tell you what they were gonna put me. I was like, well, you know, I know because I've played with them too much over my career, but it's like, it's ridiculous, you know. And for a small company like ours, I can't justify doing a license at 30. Like, you know.
Also, I find the users that come back to us and say that this, like, bringing on Tavi enables me to grow faster. Basically, that's what we love hearing. Like, they're actually, I'm thinking of one solo recruiter in Germany, and she basically is able to put more focus on either client development or candidates, interviewing the right people, instead of doing sourcing work herself, right? So bringing on Tavi, it's not only like, a sourcing tool, it actually does work, right? It will spend, one difference, we didn't mention this, but these searches, they can take up to an hour. Like,
Running,
so
right?
it just, plows through large quantities of data to get you a short list. So it's real work that's being done, that's taken off your plate, or that's taken off your team's plate, so that you can focus resources, time, attention to something that's sort of driving more value for you.
Well, I definitely want to connect with you offline.
Sure, here for it.
I have a question, I guess, just in terms of, again, I'm using this as well. When we're thinking about integration, like, obviously Ashby is going to be something that we're integrating with, but from like and I think we talked a little bit about this, because I think one big question we always have for anyone who's like scraping data or using data from third parties, like, where, for BD specifically, like, I'll kind of go the BD route, like, where are we pulling that data from? Like, when it's kind of pulling, because it is pulling the right data. Like, this is a Series A, they just raised money, etc.
Yeah, we have a bunch of different sources. We don't scrape ourselves anything at all. We procure data from compliant vendors. We also use a bunch of web search tools, right? So there's a lot of information out there on the web. And now what you can do with agents, they're really powerful. So you can do really, really impressive things with web search and putting together, the right information. So Tavi will decide itself which sources to use for that use case, and then run them. But it's a combination of procure data, web search, and general LLM knowledge to some extent.
Very cool. Very cool. Anyone else in the group have questions or any like use cases they want to bring up? Something they would specifically use this for?
Does Tavi sit in one workspace? So I consult with a couple of different startups. So I'm looking now, I'm in like 6 different Slack workspaces. Is Tavi attached to whichever one I sign up with my email, or how does it move throughout Slack as a whole, I guess?
Yeah, it's connected to a specific workspace.
Okay.
So you install it in a specific workspace, and so it won't have access to any other workspace than the one you add it to. And also, we're very careful with what data generally it has access to. So it's very guardrailed. So when you install Tavi, the only thing it will have access to is the channel it sets up itself called Tavi Recruiting as default, and then you can obviously add Tavi to other channels. That's your choice, right? And then it will have access to those channels and can read those channels as well. But no other workspaces. It's sort of fully isolated to the one you added to.
Okay, so I guess a use case would be, attaching Tavi to my Infinite workspace, creating a channel and inviting someone externally into that channel to view what Tavi populates.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That sounds like the right one. Yeah. Yeah. And you can obviously add it to multiple workspaces as well, right? But it will be different. Yeah, it will be different Tavis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it of course I haven't used it yet, but I mean the concept and if it does what you say it does, sounds great. So, I could potentially kick you some business if some of these other startups want something like that in their workspaces.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. It's very kind of you. And I would say, like if the other scenario in it is that if it helps you do like serve your clients and your customers better, or with more efficiency or with more, all of that, as much as kicking us business, we want to make your life easier, and speaking of, I'm just going to put do we have a chat? Yeah, we do. Nate, if you look, I put the early access link in there. Of course, reach out and we can do a proper demo. We can install it with you so you feel comfortable, what have you. But to the extent that you want to get going, that's there and you can install it. The other thing I would say is, Nate, it's getting better every day, and that's our job. Like, we're an early stage startup. We've managed to bootstrap to profitability on our own, and we're growing it day by day. So work with us as much as we're trying to build this with you and for you, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to dive in and play with it, but I am trying to roll off some of these other tools that I'm using. The issue I run into is I haven't found one that kind of does it all, in a sense. And so I kind of carry a lot of subscriptions. And so I'm trying to figure out, which ones I don't need, or which ones are kind of obsolete based on the tools I'm using. Usually it's coming down to which tool can consistently produce the most quality candidates. And since I work primarily exclusively with startups, like it's usually very niche. And so, how well these tools can drill down into someone's experience and, and also be able to sort of qualify the companies they come from and, give insight on, growth trajectory and ARR and all that kind of stuff. Cause I do a lot of go-to-market roles. And so the ones that can kind of give me more of that feedback and insight on profiles are the ones I usually, go to first and foremost when I'm trying to find some talent.
Got you. Yeah. On that point, this was Rob Ray, who leads Ether Bio's talent. He's part of Syelo Ventures as well. He said a lot of other tools are good at generic software engineer because everything's heavily trained on that. But it's really nice to see that Tavi's surfacing quality people outside of the core. And so I'd be so curious about if it can serve your purposes in that context, like beyond just like the, all right, back-end engineer, startup, New York kind of vibe. So yeah, give it a go. And so of course it'll give you good intelligence, man, for sure. Beyond just the role. And if that person, if it's an engineer, if that person has a website, or if they have a GitHub, or if they have some form of contributions that, for example, LinkedIn doesn't capture, Tavi will capture.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'm on the bench with a couple of kind of agencies as well. That's why I say if it works well, I'm pretty sure I can convince them to, give it a try as well. Cause it's, every day we're talking about just how to surface that high quality talent that founders just are looking for. And it's just getting tougher. And like you say, it's a lot of volume, but we're looking for, very specialized individuals. And so we're just always talking about how do we surface those folks.
Is that when you use the word like a lot of holes in tools you've been using? Are the holes in the context of searches you're doing? Like you're finding that they're limited or in capability insofar as finding people for you, like the sourcing part?
It's I mean, finding people isn't necessarily the challenge. Like, I mean, we can find people. I think it's the clients that we're serving, right? Where we know that we can't just, to your point, send them any software engineer, right? Like these need to be software engineers who have actually built something and can kind of speak to their successes. Again, a lot of those individuals aren't necessarily as active on LinkedIn and things like that. And so trying to surface those people who aren't necessarily looking for roles, but maybe open to a conversation if we can get in front of them. And then also what I'm finding is, or one of the filters I'm using more so now is just those individuals who have some sort of tenure. So usually founders aren't, open to, 8 months here, 9 months there, like type of thing. And so trying to find people who actually have, 2+ years at their companies as well. So it's a couple of things that I'm trying to drill down, that I'm trying to build up sort of my own sort of database of these strong startup operators so that I myself can kind of resurface and cycle these people to pitch to other startups.
Yeah. How are you finding that like the split between in office versus somebody working anywhere?
Definitely a lot more in office. What I'm seeing now, almost, I would say like 75% of the roles I'm seeing now. And like I say, I'm not surprised, especially since, a lot of these companies are very early stage and they, want that cohesiveness, want people in office. One of the other companies I partner with, we exclusively kind of hire fractional talent. So those are usually more remote because it's not that big of a commitment, but the ones that are looking for perm definitely either need them on site or kind of be able to travel like once a month at least.
Got you. I know that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Can we ask some questions of you guys as well? Is that Sabrina? Is that time?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Please use the rest of the time, obviously, to ask any questions y'all want.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was really excited for as well. I mean, when you're thinking about your biggest pain point today, like obviously Nate, you described yours. I wonder with Andy, with Sabrina, with Shannon as well, and Nate, feel free to also jump in. Like, what is your biggest pain point in today's moment in the context of recruitment?
I think there's so many.
Yeah,
It's these tools are changing so fast. Like I'm sitting here going, I wonder how you're different from Juicebox, right? Because everyone's like piping Juicebox, right? MetaView's like growing a lot. It's like I think it's like the staying on top of the tools and like, you don't want to invest in something that's super expensive as things are changing so fast, right? I think, or you get in the hype, And then it's like everything from candidate follow-up, right? I think recruiting teams, and I'm out of it for a moment. I'm like a one-man show right now, but having led recruiting teams and still very close to all the people that I've worked with is like they're doing more with less now, right? And you still want to like maintain that candidate experience and make sure you're closing people out. And I just can't even imagine being on the front end and being a recruiter today. And I'm like looking for contract people here, and like you post a producer job, no matter what you say that you need in a role, people are just trying to find a job, and so all these people that don't fit, so you're going through 100. The other day I sat through 150 LinkedIn and went no, and I'm like, really? No. So it's like time efficiency is a problem, candidate experience and maintaining that, and then you've got all the layout. We can't fix this, but like people are traumatized because they've been laid off. I've been through 2 myself. It's like, and you're like, it's like there's no safety net, right? And people are just tired of interviewing and preparing. So there's so many things that recruiting teams are dealing with that are core to a company's culture that we can't kind of, manage really. But I'll stop there because I'm doing it right now to that degree.
Yeah.
I'll second Andy's as well. I don't know if you saw it in the chat, but it's like the amount of noise.
What is this noise? Tell me a little bit more about this noise. Obviously, I know about the noise, but I'm here to dig in and take a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I think it's that's to Shannon's point. There's probably 30 or 40 different AI sourcing agents or bots of different pricing points are these good? Are they not good? I saw that you've got this PSB benchmark report. I've actually never heard of this PSB like reports. Now it's like the level of validation and verification that you have to do for every single tool, what the tool is claiming to do, what it actually does, and you're having to do that on top of your 8 jobs. So to Shannon's point, to Nate's point, we're getting stretched then, pulled in too many different directions and too many different clients or stakeholders' demands with no teams anymore. Most of us are now teams of one. And so the challenge there is that I'm not only having, for example, okay, I go to review resumes. I'm trying to also validate, is the AI fraud detection tool actually giving me a clear fraud signal, or is it flagging fraud because somebody used an AI application tool and it typed in the answers to the application so fast that it thinks that that's fraudulent? So is this a good candidate that I should continue reviewing, or is this someone that I should mark as fraud? It's at every step point along the way during your day, you're trying to use whatever AI tool is either available to you or that you're testing at that moment, but you also can't trust the tool to do the thing it says it's going to do. So the noise and the validation it's like an added layer of burden. We're not at the point where these tools are actually seamlessly working in a way that we can all like blindly trust them to some extent, in the same way that we can trust that when we search on LinkedIn, the odds are we are going to get a real person and a real profile 80% of the time. Now that percentage is dropping slowly, but they are pretty good about removing fraudulent people as quickly as possible. So it's every time it's kind of like, well, I have 2 bad decisions, which one's worse? Like, which tool is going to be slightly better than the thing I'm using now? But it's an added layer.
Thank you, Andy. I can keep going. I suppose on the other side, it's like, where have these tools actually impressed you, or what tools and what functionalities have actually impressed you?
I think the admin work that they can do, right? I can write a job, be on a call with my president and like have a job description. Give me that job description by the end of the day. I'm like, it's there, like we just need to clean it up, but I think it's like the admin pieces of that are good. I just think there's like, they're not going to take away, like when they say, oh, they're going to do away with recruiting, the human aspect of, I'm never going to negotiate with a bot, or at least mark my word on that. Maybe that'll change. No, but yeah, I think it's the human aspect, and then we trust it so much, right? I'm prompting AI all the time when I'm writing stuff. I'm like, no, I don't like that, and it goes, you're right, Shannon. It's like, so with your running fast and you just take it at face value, that could get you into trouble too.
I don't know if I love these tools, but anything like, obviously, I think all of us have kind of started to incorporate. I'm a big ChatGPT. I know Claude is like a new guy, but like I've always used ChatGPT more than Claude. I think just because like based on my personality, honestly, like Claude to me is a little bit more technical. But anything that can, again, like to Shannon's point, like cut down on admin work, I think is that's been a game changer for us. Like we're just on like, we're spread thin, we don't have a lot of time to do stuff. The other big one, and again, I don't know if I love it, like there's things that are wrong with it, but like something like Gem, where it's a little bit, I can find a candidate, I can source a candidate, I can put them in a bucket, and I can send out a message. Like it's kind of a little bit of like a one-stop shop. Again, it's not perfect, right? Like Gem has issues with finding good emails sometimes, and things like that. But it's things that are going to make my day easier for me. I think that's the big deal for me. But like, again, like there's so many other like sourcing tools I think are trickier. There's so many bad ones out there that all of us have now used and seen. So I like, if it's just a sourcing tool, I don't love it, right? Like if it's like strictly sourcing, I'm like, okay, well, I don't need this, right? Like you're just scraping from LinkedIn at that point. The one thing I haven't really seen, and maybe something to consider. So again, like a lot of us are also getting a ton of applicants and they're not qualified at all. So having something that's like, hey, these applicants are like, don't even look at this, like auto reject basically. I think that would be nice, but again, like you can't auto reject either. Like that's illegal. But like something that can like stack rank a little bit better, because there's certain tools out there that have started to try to do that. Even like ATSs have started trying to do that, and it's just not good. Like sourcing through an ATS is impossible right now.
Okay. Got you. No, the inbound piece is something we're increasingly considering. It's going to have to happen.
It has to.
Just a question of how we do it. And I mean, in the same way that Tavi assesses talent relative to a job description or prompt or brief, it should be able to do a pretty good job on the other side with inbound. But it's something we got to. It's good to know that you guys are struggling with that piece, especially, and so many bots. Yeah. Okay.
They shouldn't be just positioning candidates at like 1 o'clock in the morning, because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to. I met a guy down at the river with my dog yesterday who was like, yeah, I got a reject at 1 o'clock in the morning. Who's rejecting me at one? You know, I'm sure it's like, I know on LinkedIn you can delay it a few days, but it's like nothing should be, it's taking that human aspect out of like closing someone out properly. He's like, that's fishy to me. I'm like, yeah, it should be, you know.
That makes sense. I have one final question, which is really around how do you cut through the noise, given how many tools and products that are out there? What can we take away from your guys' experience perspective on cutting through the noise with Tavi?
I think it's like what Sabrina said, like if something's just a sourcing tool, I think the whole thing that you should get from AI is that you can start to get one tool in your recruiting tech stack and not have like so many different things that you have to piece from here and there. So I think that's what it is. If it can be, and if it can, I'm sorry, I know you want to make money, but if it's like, it can be reasonable too for a smaller company. Cause like, again, company with like that I'm at right now, they can't afford a LinkedIn. It doesn't. So again, I know you need to be profitable, but like also make it to where you can get it out to more people, because something that you're building could be used, I mean, across the board in all these different industries, right? And so.
That's great. Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
I personally don't know how to answer that, because I jump at shiny things, so it's kind of a lot of a me problem. Like I work out of about 3 ATSs right now, about 4 different sourcing tools. Like I got FOMO when it comes to TA tech, so I like to I'll spend a week using one, and then I'll see that I'm paying for something, and I'm like, oh shit, I need to use that. That costs $300. So I'll kind of jump to that, and like I said, I'm at a point where I'm trying to be a better businessman and offload some of this stuff, but I don't know if the noise will stop as long as AI keeps iterating at the speed at which it is, right? So, I kind of have a hub I built in Claude that kind of anchors me in a sense. It knows everything I have going on, and so if I'm ever kind of in a space I don't know which way to turn, I'll go there, and it kind of points me at what's priority. But yeah, I think for me personally, and I think it depends. Like I know if you're in house, I think that's different than someone like myself who consults and kind of do a ton of sourcing. Like that's always what I should be doing. Like that what makes me money. And so if things get too noisy, I'm just gonna pick a tool and source for a couple of hours. Because I know it's dollars attached to that. The other stuff is just kind of like fun, just playing around with different tools and stuff. So
got you. Thank you, Nate. I also wondered, like, what are there I don't know, influencers that you're listening to? Are there communities you're a part of? Obviously, we're part of Syelo Ventures in today's context, but like, how do you think about where do you hear about all these tools, Nate? For example, that you get FOMO about if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them jump in my inbox,
Gotcha.
and then my LinkedIn feed is all TA stuff, and so I'm usually clicking on different ads and stuff just to, if it's a clean user interface, like I'm usually wanting to see a demo and kind of see what the workflow looks like. I like tools that aren't just so busy. Like a lot of these tools are as comprehensive as they may be, and as much as we want like everything in one system, like it still needs to be user friendly. And I've seen some that it does all the things, but you almost need a TA ops person to set it up, right? I don't have the time to configure all the stuff, and so the setup piece is timely. And so if I see that, then that's gonna kind of turn me off. But yeah, I think LinkedIn puts a lot of it in front of me, and then like I said, I receive a lot of emails different newsletters that may be sponsored by different TA tools and stuff like that, that I may check out as well.
Awesome.
I think too, it's also good to have a tool that eventually we think about talent, but goes beyond the recruiting process and maybe into the people ops, side after someone's been hired, because I think too, we don't get to get a lot of retention data, like how long did these hires that we make. I don't think we've ever really gotten great about tracking retention and things like that once, because the tools are so different, So just something right now.
That's huge. Yeah, that's absolutely huge. That's like the holy grail, Shannon, in a sense,
It is. It's like, am I doing the right thing? Are these the folks that are is this kind of profile working in this startup and sticking, or are they going back to RSU land and Meta, or whatever? We, when we were at Cohere, we noticed that if people had gone from a large Meta or Google to a startup and then to Cohere, they were more successful. But if we pulled folks out of Google DeepMind, they retracted back in under a year. But that was all hand counted, not done.
Got you. That should be possible with integrations. It's just also how easily some of these tools can play with each other. A lot of them are sort of, closed walls, if you will. But with Tavi, that's exactly what we were trying to enable.
It's just more.
Yeah, as an agent, it should be able to go to the extent that it gets access to that sort of data.
Yeah,
it should be able to run that calculus for you.
Yeah, you just need the start date and the hire date and time, all that, and it kind of just tracks the candidate experience, the whole candidate life cycle or hire life cycle.
Yeah, and even how fast they move between levels or their performances, those they can all be ingested. And
what are making them so successful? Yeah.
It's one thesis we have is that we want, in a sense, to build as little software as possible, and as much of this sort of, we call it the coworker capability of Tavi, which is to just work in the existing stack that you already are used to and working with, because typically people don't like to replace tools unless you're really dissatisfied with one. If you're terribly dissatisfied with your ATS, you might consider changing it, but otherwise, why would you? And we want to build Tavi into something that can work with your existing stack, tools, platforms, and extract data, make use of data, connect it across tools, and tie the loop back to the sourcing bit, where or sourcing an inbound assessment, or actually identifying the profiles that tend to do well later in the company.
I'm curious, have you done any biotech? Has anyone tried your tool from biotech?
I'm trying to see if Ether Bio is biotech. They're AI designed molecular machines powering the next industrial. Yeah, raw. I mean, that could be biotech for sure. And sorry, Shannon, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say New Limit is New Limit's a complex hiring. I know they're hiring a scientific talent partner. Again, Brian Armstrong, who was CEO of Coinbase when I was there. I've talked afterward because I almost got into executive search with him. And it's his roles. I remember talking to one of their founders. They're yeah, we talk to hundreds of people that fail. And I'm well, then you've got a problem, and you got a problem that needs to be fixed, because you shouldn't have to talk to hundreds and hundreds. But when I look, I was just popping back in. It's their roles are incredibly specific and difficult, and a lot of scientists and things like that. And it's you could crack the nut with someone like that, because now they're out trying to get a scientist that wants to turn into a talent partner, just because I think it's such a hard landscape for them.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to at least have a chat and give them free access, because that was the quote I shared was exactly what Rob was saying. It's a lot of these tools are trained on software engineers, but there's all these edge cases that have nothing to do with just a normal backend in New York, SF, whatever, Seattle, and you need to be able to read public research papers or see their contributions to knowledge in that way. And in fact, some of the early agency successes we had were research scientists for labs, but they're for neo labs. I mean, and they're more working on the AI side, but there was no way to validate individual X by virtue of looking at their LinkedIn. You had to go deeper.
I think that they could do with like if you, yeah, again, we talk offline and help them if you could crack that nut. Because yeah.
At the very least, here to try.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I
hop
mean, we're
off.
coming up to time. But Sabrina, if there's anything else, I mean, let us know. But I've been looking forward to this all week. I got to tell you, we've been really excited about just having the chance to meet with you folks, and thank you for the opportunity. It means a lot to us at this early stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining today. I'm going to be sharing this recording internally. We also share a feedback form with the entire group, so we'll have like feedback for you. People usually will ask questions, things like that. Also happy to connect anyone who's interested in hearing more from you guys, but this has been great. I'm still using it. I'm having fun playing around with the tools. I really appreciate y'all coming on and sharing with the team.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest
Thanks,
of your day.
everyone.
Today, yeah.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.